New Weapons Channel. U.S. experts are trying to understand what kind of missile the Russian Su-57 fifth-generation fighter jet fired during a test. After the demonstration of aerobatics and missile launch from the intra-fuselage compartment of the Su-57 was caught on video, they began to wonder what kind of aircraft munition the newest fifth-generation fighter Su-57 was using. Getting ahead of the story, the New Weapons Channel will show another missile launch by a Russian Su-57 fighter. The video shows elements of aerobatics and group flights performed by pre-production Su-57s. At the same time, one of the fighters fired an air-to-air missile. American experts note that the video was published 4 months after the Russian Air Force acquired the new R-77 long-range missile, and it is not clear where the Americans got the idea that the R-77 was only 4 months old. R-77, according to NATO classification, A-12 Adder, Russian medium-range, 110 kilometers, air-to-air guided missile. It was accepted for service in 1994. R-77 is designed to fight air targets, aircraft, helicopters, ground-to-air and air-to-air missiles at any time of day and night in the presence of active radar interference. The New Weapons Channel reminds us that the dimensions of this ammunition do not allow it to be placed in underwing compartments. For large missiles, there are other compartments, which are located between the nacelles. Presumably, the Su-57 launched an entirely new short-range R-74 or RVVMD missile, which is based on the Soviet R-73M munition. In the footage, you can see the outline of the munition reminiscent of the short-range R-74 missile. The concealed underwing compartments are no less interesting. Not only that there are no publicly available photos of these compartments in the open, and still no information about how they work. Presumably, on the Su-57 can be implemented a unique design of compartments, which includes a retractable rail.
Hello, I'm glad to be with you again. My name is Helen and you are on the New Weapon channel. Today we are talking about two 160 bombers, which maybe it's time to retire. What do you think? Recent operations over the North Sea proved that this old bomber can learn some new tricks. A pair of Russian Tu-160 White Swan strategic bombers, which are fastest and largest bombers even built, took part in a 12-hour-long patrol flight over the northern seas of the coast of Russia earlier this week. The two bombers flew over the natural waters of the Barents, Norwegian and North Seas, during which time the aircraft were escorted by MiG-31 jet fighters from the Russian Naval Air Force along certain sections of their route, while at other times the two 116s were shadowed by aircraft from the British Royal Air Force and the Royal Norwegian Air Force. The flight lasted 20 hours, but it was less than half the time that a part of the supersonic Russian bombers spent up in the air last month, when two crews of the long-range aviation group set a new record for distance and duration. The pilots of the Russian Aerospace Forces were up in the air for more than 25 hours and covered a distance of more than 20,000 kilometers. Russia operated a reported 27 serially produced Tu-160s along with 9 test prototypes, and all of the aircraft operate out of Eagles Air Force Base outside of Saratov. The Russian military has stepped up such patrol flights to counter the increase in United States and NATO flights in the same neutral waters. The skies do seem to be getting rather crowded of late. What do you think about that? How long will these bombers fly or not?
New Weapons Channel. At the same time, 7 Russian An-124-100 Ruslan took to the air during the exercise. The Defense Ministry for the first time held a drill with 7 Ruslan heavy aircraft. The An-124 Ruslan is a heavy long-range transport aircraft. It has no analogs in the world in terms of flight range and maximum payload. It made its first flight in 1982 and was produced in Kiev and Ulanovska from 1984 to 2004. The aircraft is designed for long-distance transportation of heavy and oversized cargo. As of 2015, 26 such machines are in service with the Russian Air Force, of which 10 are serviceable. The exercises were conducted with the participation of young crews. 7 AN-124-100 Ruslan aircraft took to the skies simultaneously for the first time. The total length of the route covered by them amounted to over 1,000 kilometers. During the flights, the crews practiced takeoff, en route flights and landing at shortened time intervals. The flights were conducted in difficult weather conditions in the form of precipitation, low clouds and strong wind gusts. The flight tactical exercises were conducted with young flight crews trained in 2023. They made it possible to test the crew's training in simultaneous long-range transportation of personnel of military units with standard weapons and military equipment. The AN-124-100 Ruslan flew at an altitude of over 4,000 meters. The total length of the route exceeded 1,000 kilometers, the average speed of aircraft 500 kilometers per hour. New weapons. The Russian Navy has had 5 accidents and 4 lost aircraft in 30 years. Let's look at the downing of a Su-33 fighter jet from a Russian aircraft carrier through the eyes of surveillance cameras and break down how it happened. North Atlantic 2005. Naval aviation planes are performing routine flights. Fighter Su-33, tail number 82, comes in for landing on the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov. When landing aircrafts, cables on the deck are lifted by 12 centimeters. There are 4 cables in total. The task of the deck aviation pilot is to land the aircraft on a stretch of 36 meters, with a deviation from the axis of the deck of no more than 3 meters. The landing is performed at high revs of the aircraft's engines, at a speed of about 240 kilometers per hour. The throttle of the engines is retracted only after the aerofinisher cable is hooked. Otherwise there is no chance to go to the second circle. As you can see, the plane makes a landing on the deck, gets caught in the cable of the aerofinisher and pulls it out. The pilot takes the throttle off, the cable breaks in an area where there are no other airfinisher cables. There was nothing else to hook the airplane, there was not enough RPMs and the airplane rolled over the deck. At the last moment the pilot managed to eject. After 5 minutes he was lifted from the sea surface by a rescue helicopter, and the plane sank at a depth of 1,100 meters with the identification system of his alien. The cause of the accident was the breakage of the brake cable. Meanwhile 4 more Su-33 fighters stayed in the air, and on approach another brake cable was cut, but the plane managed to go on the next circle and landed on the deck, having successfully hooked one of the 2 remaining cables with its hook. After landing, an inspection of the fighter revealed damage to the tail section. The broken cable of the aerofinisher whipped the plane like a whip, and the fighter managed to take off again and land. The next 2 accidents occurred 10 years later in 2016. On that day, 3 MiG-29Ks took off from the aircraft carrier. After completing the mission, the deck landings had to take place at 3 to 4 minute intervals. The first fighter landed without any problems. The second MiG caught the second cable, but tore it and was only able to catch the 4th cable. And the torn second tangled with the third, making it impossible to land. While the crew of the aircraft carrier were tidying up the cables, according to one version, while the plane was in the waiting area, both engines failed, and according to another, it ran out of fuel. Then the pilot ejected and was taken aboard the Admiral Kuznetsov by the search and rescue team. Officially, details of the incident have not been disclosed yet. 3 weeks later the Su-33 fighter landed on the deck of the aircraft carrier, caught the second cable of the aerofinisher and ran along the deck for another 50 to 60 meters, pulling the cable to its limits. But when it broke, the fighter had already left the area where the other cables are located. There was nothing else to hook the plane on, and the plane rolls out over the deck. The pilot manages to eject and is picked up a short time later by a rescue helicopter.